Hey guys, Stockaholics, thanks for being here today. I know a lot of you guys are interested in the tanker stuff. The part two for the crude tankers will be here sometime this weekend. I still want to listen to a bunch of those conference calls to glean insights. But today, there was something else that was pressing on my mind. So today, I'm going to be talking about how I believe that the gambling game of poker and the stock market are the same game. And you guys are likely confused, I'm sure. But hopefully by the end of this video, you can draw some conclusions that will be useful to you. If you find this information at any point useful to you, I would greatly appreciate a like. And if you'd like to see more weird stuff like this, consider subscribing. So let's start with some context. Why did I come up with this idea today? So a little bit about me. For a period of time in my life, for I'd say about 9 months, I played poker full time. The reason I did this wasn't particularly out of love for the game or anything like that, although it is a fun recreational hobby for me. The reason I did this is I was in university at the time and I was pursuing an education degree. So what that meant for me to complete that degree, there was a period of 4.5 months where I wasn't able to, essentially I didn't have time to work and to achieve, I guess, my income goals. So instead of taking out student loans and to try and pay for university, I decided that it would be a better strategy to use the skills that I had developed playing the game of poker to pay for my education, unbeknownst to my landlord and roommate. So I did, and while I was doing my student teaching, I played poker at night for several hours a night, and I was reasonably successful. I was able to make my rent by doing this, which I live in Hawaii, so I wouldn't consider that an achievement to scoff at. But it happened, and I would say that I learned a lot of concepts by having done this, and I would also say that if I had to do it again, I probably would not, because it was immensely stressful. And the variance that happens during the game, meaning the ups and downs, can be kind of soul crushing. But here I am, and I looking back, I see, I look positively at having done it. So because I have gone through this, I really have noticed some similarities between the stock market and the game of poker. And I really think that there are some insights that investors can glean from my experiences. First of all, I'd like to start with thinking like a degenerate. So when we're playing the game of poker, one of our major goals is when we find a flaw in our opponent's strategies, we want to exploit these weaknesses. So we can exploit the weaknesses in your opponents, and then through careful effort and work, by analyzing how we've played prior, we can also fix the mistakes, and we can remove some of our own weaknesses in our game. When I'm thinking about the stock market, I kind of see all the other investors, everybody else that is buying and selling stocks. I consider them my competition. They all my opponents are all other investors, and I really do see this because I believe the stock market is a zero-sum game. I believe there are going to be winners and there are losers, and the game of the stock market itself is an illusion to kind of hide that from you. So make no mistake, if we are investors in the stock market, we are doing so because we are trying to take someone else's money. When we click that buy button, it isn't because we are planning to lose money. That money is going to come when that stock price appreciates. It's going to come from somebody else's dollars, inflating that price. So I would like to argue that if taking other people's money is a bother to you and you find ethical hardship in yourself by doing that, you should go work in the soup kitchen and you should immediately stop putting any money into the stock market. Chomp, chomp. So this is what I'm going to be talking about today. First, I'll be talking about winners and losers. Some of the things that there are common in the stock market and the game of poker. Some of the things I've noticed, beginning players, they have some common leaks, I would say. Third is a kind of a concept for the game of poker, which I would like to show how I think about applying to the stock market, is playing the opposite strategy of the table, especially as a contrarian investor. Step number 4, I'll be talking about are some of the habits that successful poker players have and losing players do not, which will also be applicable to the stock market. And step number 5, I'll be talking about why your grandma is a gambling degenerate. These will be my observations. So step number 1, winners and losers. What I'm showing you guys here, let me get myself out of the way. Whoops. I'm horrible. There it is. Okay, there are winners and losers in the stock market. So there's a common statistic that if you've listened to any experienced trader, they'll say something along the lines of 90% of retail investors lose their money in the stock market. So you'll see there's some random new guy, he gets involved in the stock market. He's like, oh, this is easy. I can put money in XYZ stock because somebody told me to buy it. Well, what ends up happening to most of these people? They end up losing. They don't understand the game and they don't take time to learn it. They just buy something because somebody else is telling them to buy it, right? So a significant percentage of retail investors are average Joes and Janes. They jump into investing because they believe stocks only go up. And there's an illusion that there is easy money to be made in the stock market. Anybody that's been involved for a period of time will tell you that that is absolutely not the case. And the point of this is not a perfect statistic. Yeah, you'll see some places they'll say, well, it's 8%, it's or 80%. No, it's 95% of players are losers. The point is the majority of people who get involved in the stock markets are losers. Yeah. Well, the same thing is the case for poker. And this is a graph taken from a site that's tracking a certain player that I've played a significant amount of games against, especially when I was playing to grind for my rent, right? This isn't the perfect example because there was a stretch you can see here on this player for the first 20,000 games that he played that he was actually a profitable player. A lot of times what you'll see in the beginning players is they'll go up for a certain point of time, they'll get lucky, and they'll come to the same conclusion that people in the stock market have, and say, hey, this is an easy game. Well, and then what happens right after that? Their graphs, their winnings just absolutely plummet. Well, in the case of this player, he was a profitable player for a certain period of time, but then he decided here that he was going to move up stakes. And the game gets a lot more challenging. Your opponents get a lot tougher as you do so, and he was not able to adapt. So I guess that would be another lesson to learn, is that you constantly need to reevaluate and you need to be able to adapt. So if 90% of poker players lose money, well, why don't they stop? So a significant percentage of poker players are just like the people in the stock market. They believe that it's easy money. They don't learn to appreciate the game, and they believe it's an easy and that they're better than most people. It's kind of a beautiful game in that regard because it creates this illusion that's not really true at all. In the stock market, there are also objectively losing plays, and there are also objectively winning plays. So I'm going to give you an example of some losing ones because I think those are more entertaining. So this is a stock called Nikola, and if you've ever heard of this company, it's a fraud. Okay, it was just established to take people's money and get involved in the EV industry because there was immense hype at the time, and there still is. And you might say, well, stockaholics. Well, if you bought it February 2020 when the stock went public, you could have gotten, look, it went all the way up to $80, right? Well, okay. So if you invest in frauds in the long run, you're going to lose money, okay? Maybe if you timed it perfectly in February and you sold it at the tippity top, which I would argue probably one human being out of all the thousands and thousands of people who got involved in here was able to do successfully. But anyway, just think about it. If you ask any successful investor if investing in fraud is a winning strategy, and everybody's going to tell you no. And there was immense red flag. If anybody had done any research on this company, they would be able to identify all of these flags made public to everybody. The CEO had a nefarious past. He was involved in scams before. They took the company with just a mere concept public. It goes on and on. If you're curious, you can go. I don't want to talk about Nikola all day. If you like, go research the company. But it's to me, it's still amazing that how, even when it's been made public that it is a fraud, it's still doubled the public offering price. In any case, just like in the stock market, there are objectively losing plays. In poker, there are also objectively losing plays. So I'm about to show you a hand where Vanessa Selps plays a hand terribly on live television. I'll do that first. Here we go.
What?
She puts in 6 bets with Jack High.
Oh boy. 1062.
$106,200 is now the bet.
This is an absolute punt. Let's count the hang time.
Alright, I'm all in.
So if you don't know what that means, a 6 bet means that there's a raise after a raise after a raise after a raise after a raise. So they were going back and forth before any cards had come out. She decided that she wanted to push, she wanted to bully this player who happened to have aces, right? And you can argue the same thing as the stock market. You can say, hey, but stockaholics, she could have gotten lucky. None of the cards came out yet. She could have beaten those aces with Jack 7 18% of the time. And you might notice, well, maybe if you buy a fraudulent company, maybe you'll win 18% of the time, right? But again, you might get lucky once, but you're not accounting for all the times that you're going to lose. And plus, hey, she was probably reading into a tell she had on her opponent. She thought he was weak, but as you can see, he was not. She completely misread the situation. So if you ask any successful poker player if 6 betting Jack High before the flop is a winning strategy, I would say 100% of anybody who knows anything about the game will tell you no, they're absolutely out of their mind. It's a completely unnecessary play. She can fold and she can get 2 new cards immediately. The same thing with Nikola. Go find another stock. You don't need to invest in fraud, right? Beginning players. The people who win early on have it the worst. I think I talked a little bit about this in the last slide. So there's a common pattern. It sucks people into the game. And I think the same is true for the stock market. People who make easy money in the beginning, they don't learn to appreciate the game and how difficult it is. So the people who win early, they didn't get their ass kicked. They didn't know how deep they are in it, right? The best thing that can happen to you is to get your ass kicked early. Variance, the ups and downs, the swings, they often do not work like that. So you'll see a lot of these beginning players, they get sucked in on the high of buying and winning. And we as winning players know that this being a zero-sum game, the stock market, these are a lot of the players that we will be profiting from. So often people who win early, they do not learn discipline. If you've ever been in like elementary or middle school, there's always, well, I don't know if there's always, but there's sometimes this kid who thinks he's the tough guy. He's got to go assert his dominance, but he doesn't realize that he's 4'2", and he's a little kid, right? So what ends up happening, this kid has to get curb checked. He's got to get his ass beat before he realizes what's going on. I would argue the same is true for poker, and the same is true for the stock market. For me, I had to get my ass beat before I realized what was going on. Having had my ass beat in poker, I already learned that lesson, and I've been able to apply it to the stock market. Yeah. There's also one beginning rule. If you listen to some guy and a bunch of people, I guess you would say, and they're talking about the stock market. Say you're in a group of your friends, and you can't identify which one of those players is a sucker, then that's because it's you. A common strategy, step number 3 we're going to talk about today, is playing the opposite strategy as the people at your table. In the stock market, we want to do the same thing, right? So in poker, often we can adjust our game. We should have a baseline strategy for our game, but we can adjust to how our opponents are playing. So if we see, for example, at this table, we got 7 players. Let's say they're all drunk. Let's say they're all playing loose. They're playing any 2 cards, like Vanessa Selps, and they're 6-betting Jack 7 before the flop. I don't need to play my basic game in a game. All I need to do is wait until I get a good hand and get paid, right? Now, if our opponents are doing the opposite strategy, if they're playing tight, we can often win by playing the opposite strategy. We can play more aggressive, play more loose, because we know we can win more pots when our opponents fold, right? The same thing is true in the stock market. We want to be selling as contrarian investors when other people are super excited and super happy about their stocks. And we want to be buying when others are not. They're terrified. There's immense fear. There's blood in the streets. We, knowing about Mr. Market, want to do the opposite strategy of the table. We want to do the opposite strategy of the market. I'd also like to say that your grandma, yes, she is a gambling degenerate. Even though she's worked for 30 years, she's never stepped foot into a casino. She is playing the same game that all of us savage sharks are playing. Anybody involved in the stock market is playing the same game. 401ks, investment brokers, and retail, all alike, whether they like it or not, we're playing a Ponzi scheme type of game. We're trying to sell higher than someone else, right? We're taking money from some and hoping to profit for ourselves. And largely, and most people, they don't understand this, right? Largely under the assumption that investors in shares can only go up. Now, we've been in a bull market for what, the last 20 years, but a lot of people are suffer from recency bias. They don't know history. When you look at the flags that are happening in the American economy, what's happening to money, these people are gonna get eaten up, man. So grandma's strategy, her retirement strategy is to sell socks to millennials. Well, I'm here to tell you, grandma, nope, you are playing at my table and I'm going to take all of your money. Stocks, I would like to remind you, are a zero-sum game. So what do successful players do? They understand that we're playing a game of skill. So they take time and they invest in themselves. When I have a terrible session playing poker and I lose, oftentimes I get very emotional, right? Same thing in the opposite. If I have a great winning session, I get very emotional. But afterwards, I have to go back. I need to take some time. I go back, I look at how I did. I have recording software that shows me how I played different hands. I go and review them and I see how I played. I go through the thoughts in my head and I see if they make sense. I use those past hands to see where I made mistakes. The same thing should happen true in your investing, right? And this is a really foreign concept to, I think, like anybody. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say this. Go back, go look at your prior investments, the things that you've bought and sold before. Let's say you wanted to do a swing trade, or you wanted to, buy Tesla. Go look, see if it worked out for you. See if it's a winning strategy. Think about it and think about why you bought it and when you bought it and why you sold it, and see if there's any insights you can glean from that. If you constantly do this, you constantly reevaluate yourself, you invest in yourself, you're going to become a lot better at the game of the stock market. Yeah. Same thing. One other thing that you might want to do: look for other winning players, seek them out. Don't go. Talk to your neighbor down the street who's investing in every stock that comes on his Robinhood front page. Go seek out winning players, form a circle with them, and see what they do and talk about it. And then at the same time, what you can also do, share the ideas, share your past investments. with them. See what they think about it. See how see what insights you can glean from other people's opinions. Nobody here's a savant genius. Certainly not myself. I can't think of everything that I would like to from making an investment decision, right? And the last thing, they learn to manage their emotions, and this is a big one in the stock market. Again, we see this with the concept of Mr. Market. When everybody's extremely fearful, it's not like we're immune to that fear. We just know that we have to manage that fear, and we have to make decisions irrespective of them, right? The same thing when Mr. Market is super happy. We need to be willing to sell and not care if the stock goes up after that, right? We need to stick to our plan. We need to not make decisions based on our emotions, but based on logic, based on our goal plan, right? And then, same thing is true for poker. There's a concept called tilt. It can go both ways. You can win tilt and you can lose tilt, right? And I've seen this also in the stock market, where people they incur a certain amount of losses and they think, shit, I got to make this money back. If you get into that mindset, you're doomed. You've been enticed into the gambling mindset, and you will eternally be a losing player. I promise you. I want to close with this, and this is a winning player. He teaches a course, but he's got an amazing ad that kind of shows a winning player's poker mindset. And I think if you take these insights from this player and apply that to your investing career, I think that you are, if you can do all of those to a T, you're already going to beat 90% of players. And I'd also like to remind you one more time that if it is a zero-sum game, and if we have to beat 90% of players to make money, then we need to do what successful players do. All right, here it is.
Have the standard of a champion to become a true champion. Would a champion go out before an important tournament and drink and party? No, very likely not. Losers see the efforts as punishment, as pain.
Ah, that's a nasty river.
Winners appreciate the lonely hours, the mistakes they make, and the lessons they're being taught. They understand that sometimes going on this journey, you will become desperate and frustrated. They don't give up, they keep going. They always get up one more time. The small things matter if you want to succeed. Your preparation, your breaks, your warm-up, your cooldown. They're as much as important as the performance itself. Champions behave like champions in all areas before they even succeed. Studying, your relationships, your goals, sleep, your food, it all matters. The more successful you want to become, the higher the price you have to pay, the more you have to sacrifice. If you give up after trying once, I would promise you and I would guarantee you one thing: you will never win. If you keep going, if you keep pushing, you will succeed. It is a test of your endurance. How bad do you really want it? To get up again and again and again, ditching friends, ditching parties, ditching vacations for lonely nights of studying and grinding, and yet never be certain when success will come. We all know the feeling of enthusiasm and excitement before a session just to get destroyed. As in poker and in life, variance doesn't know your preparation. It doesn't care how bad you want it. It doesn't care how much you think you're better than your opponents. If you think you deserve something, this world will eat you up and shit you out, period. Nobody in this world cares how unfair the world might appear for you. Don't confuse confidence with entitlement. Results don't come instantaneous. Don't wish, don't dream, go and fucking do it, execute, be ready to fail, be ready to crash. It is a numbers game. The more often you try, the harder and smarter you study, the more likely you will succeed. Take breaks, but never quit. Show up every single day. The ones who succeeded simply tried more often. It is a risk, but the upsides are infinite. The reward of winning, this feeling that is undescribable, the pressure release and the pride we feel, because you know you fucking earned it. Embrace every single victory. Life is fast and the game continues to change. Don't be the one that falls behind, and let's continue to crush.
Hey, if you made it through these 25 minutes and you haven't already, I would greatly appreciate it. Like, if you'd like to see more content like this, please give me a subscribe. Till next time.